$13 billion. 5,000 sailors. One missile. $400,000. Iran built that missile specifically to sink a carrier. America built the carrier knowing that missile exists. For 40 years, no one has fired. Here is the geography that explains why, and here is the geography that explains how long it holds. Start with the Persian Gulf and understand why it is the worst possible body of water in the world for a carrier strike group to operate in. The Gulf is roughly 900 kilometers long and 300 kilometers wide at its broadest point. It is shallow, average depth, 35 meters. It is enclosed on 3 sides. It has one exit, the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran's coastline runs along its entire northern edge for nearly 2,000 kilometers. A carrier strike group needs ocean. It needs depth to operate submarines. It needs space to maneuver. It needs distance from hostile shores to stay outside missile range. The Persian Gulf provides none of these things. A carrier inside the Gulf is, from a pure naval geometry standpoint, a target operating in a bathtub. This is why U.S. carriers typically operate outside the Gulf, in the Arabian Sea or in the Red Sea, and project power inward through the strait. The carrier itself rarely enters the Gulf. The aircraft it carries do. Now look at Iran's position on the northern shore. The Zagros Mountains run parallel to the Gulf Coast, providing natural cover for missile batteries positioned with direct line of sight to the shipping lanes. Iran has spent 30 years building a layered missile architecture specifically designed for one operational environment, engaging large, slow-moving targets in confined Gulf waters. The geography did not create this standoff, but the geography determines its terms. A carrier strike group is not one ship. It is a formation. The carrier at the center, 2 cruisers, air defense, missile intercept, 3 destroyers, anti-submarine, surface strike. 1 attack submarine running silent ahead of the formation, invisible to most sensors, already there before the formation arrives. In practical terms, a carrier in the Arabian Sea can strike targets anywhere in Iran. Its Fa-18s fly over Hormuz, execute their strike packages, and return to the deck before Iranian ground-based defenses can respond effectively. The carrier never enters the threat zone. It sends its aircraft in. The U.S. typically maintains 1 or 2 carrier strike groups in the broader Middle East region at any given time. When both carriers are in the Arabian Sea, the message is, "We can strike Iran from outside missile range." When one moves into the Red Sea, it covers the Houthi threat in Yemen as well. When a carrier actually enters the Persian Gulf, which happens rarely and deliberately, the message is something else entirely. A calculated display of resolve, and a significant risk. The carrier's job is not to survive a direct Iranian missile barrage. The carrier's job is to ensure that barrage never comes, by positioning itself in a way that makes the cost of firing the first shot higher than any benefit Iran could gain. That is deterrence. And deterrence is a geography problem as much as a military one. Iran's anti-carrier strategy has a name inside the US military: Anti-Access Area Denial, A2/AD. The concept is not to match American naval power ship for ship. Iran cannot do that. The concept is to make the cost of operating in the Gulf high enough that American ships either stay out or operate under constant attrition pressure. The centerpiece is ballistic missiles. The Khalij Fars, a 500-kilogram warhead at Mach 3, engineered specifically to defeat carrier defense systems. Its guidance system homes in on the radar signature of a large warship. Range, 300 kilometers. From launch sites in the Zagros foothills, every point in the Persian Gulf is within range. But the threat doesn't only come from above. The second layer is cruise missiles, subsonic, sea-skimming, designed to fly under radar coverage and strike at waterline. Iran's strategy in a conflict scenario is not one precision strike. It is a salvo, multiple missiles, multiple directions, simultaneously, designed to overwhelm carrier defense through volume, not precision. And not everything comes from a launch site. The third layer is the fast boat swarm. hundreds of Revolutionary Guard craft, each carrying rockets, torpedoes, or mines. In the confined northern Gulf, they are genuinely difficult to neutralize before closing to attack range. U.S. Navy exercises simulating Gulf swarm scenarios have produced uncomfortable results the Navy is still working to address. And below the surface, Iran operates 3 Kilo-class submarines and a fleet of smaller midget submarines. In the shallow, acoustically complex waters of the Gulf, submarine detection is harder than in open ocean. A submarine that gets inside a carrier's defensive screen represents an existential threat. Iran cannot sink an American carrier in a straight conventional fight. What Iran has built is a system specifically designed to make a straight conventional fight impossible. Here is the geometry that produces the central paradox of this standoff. The further a U.S. carrier operates from the Gulf, safely outside Iranian missile range, the less it can directly respond to threats inside the Gulf. The closer it moves, entering the Strait, operating in the northern Gulf, the deeper it moves into the kill zone Iran has spent 30 years designing. The Gulf is 300 kilometers wide. Iran's missiles have 300-kilometer range. The overlap is complete. There is no position inside the Gulf where a carrier is outside Iranian missile range, because the Gulf is not large enough to provide that position. At Mach 3, a missile crosses that entire 300-kilometer overlap in exactly 5 minutes. The U.S. Navy doesn't have hours to debate a response. They have a 300-second ticking clock to save 5,000 sailors. 300 seconds. That is the entire decision window, from launch detection to impact, inside which the Aegis combat system must identify, track, and destroy every incoming missile. In a single missile scenario, the system is highly effective. In an Iranian saturation salvo, multiple missiles, multiple directions, multiple flight profiles simultaneously, the math becomes brutal. The United States has responded to this geometry in 3 ways: investing in carrier defense, Aegis, the SM-6 missile, the CIWS close-in weapon system, developing long-range strike capabilities so carriers can operate further from the threat, and preemptive strike planning against Iranian launch infrastructure before it can be used. None of these 3 responses fully resolves the geometry. They manage it. The honest answer to who's winning is, both sides are winning the thing they're trying to win, and neither side can win the thing the other side is trying to prevent. The United States maintains freedom of navigation through the Gulf. Commercial shipping moves, oil flows, carriers operate. No Iranian missile has struck a U.S. warship. The deterrence architecture has held. That is the American definition of winning. Iran has imposed a permanent operational cost on the United States. Every carrier deployment requires extraordinary force protection measures. Every Hormuz transit involves significant risk calculation. The price of maintaining access has increased continuously for 40 years, not sinking a carrier, making the carrier's presence expensive. That is the Iranian definition of winning. The standoff persists because both sides understand the terminal logic of escalation. If Iran fires a missile that strikes a U.S. carrier, even a non-lethal strike, the American response would be overwhelming and immediate. Iran's missile infrastructure, naval assets, and air defense network would be destroyed within days. Iran's leadership has seen the target packages. A successful strike would be the last missile Iran fires for a generation. And the United States understands that destroying Iran's military does not end the threat. It potentially accelerates Iranian pursuit of a nuclear deterrent and destabilizes a region on which the global oil economy depends. The geography creates the standoff. The standoff creates the stability. The stability is fragile, expensive, and permanent. $13 billion versus $400,000. On pure economics, Iran wins that equation. It costs far less to build the threat than to defend against it, but the hardware equation is not the real equation. The real equation is geographic. Who has the coastline? Who has the confined water? Who has the mountains behind which to hide the launch sites? Who has the open ocean from which to project power without entering the kill zone? Iran has the coastline. America has the ocean. And the 33 kilometers of the Strait of Hormuz between them is the hinge on which the entire strategic balance turns. The carriers and the missiles are expensive hardware pointing at each other across a body of water. Neither side wants to turn into a battlefield. The geography made the standoff. The geography sustains it. And the geography is the only reason it hasn't ended in catastrophe. So far, subscribe. The map is already drawn.